The word Sentinel, it has a certain weight to it, doesn't it?
Yeah, it really
Feels very old school to me, like a guardian standing at the gate of a castle, maybe holding a lantern in the fog. It implies someone or something that watches over us.
it implies vigilance, right?
Yeah.
Watching, waiting. But what is really fascinating to me is how that definition has completely fractured in the 21st century. I mean, if you ask a space engineer and then you ask a robotics student and then a crypto economist what a sentinel is, you're going to get three radically different answers.
Exactly, and that is exactly why I love today's stack of sources. We are diving into 4 different things that all use the name Sentinel, but they describe a spectrum of technology that is honestly kind of dizzying when you put them side by side.
Oh, absolutely.
We are going from the absolute vacuum of space down to a student's garage project, over to a corporate boardroom, and finally into the abstract and, frankly, slightly terrifying world of blockchain economics.
It is a perfect cross-section of what surveillance actually means right now. We are moving from passive observation, just looking at things, to active intervention, and eventually to something that looks a lot like financial negotiation.
So let's map this out for you, the listener, so you know where we are headed in this deep dive. First, we have the heavy hitter, which is the European Space Agency's massive Sentinel-1 satellite constellation. Then we have a DIY student-built ground robot called the Neo Sentinel rover.
Right.
Then a commercial drone defense company called Neo Sentinel. And finally, a futuristic audit report for something called Neo Sentinel-1.
Which is not a machine at all. It's an autonomous economic agent. It's code that owns money.
Which we will get to, and I warn you right now, it is a brain melter. But the mission today is to connect these dots. How does the definition of a watcher change when you're looking at the Earth from 693 kilometers up versus rolling on the ground versus making crypto trades in the cloud?
Well, let's start at the very top. The eye in the sky.
Right, the ESA Sentinel-1. This is arguably the gold standard when people think of modern Earth observation. But looking at the source material from the EO portal, I think most people probably have the wrong idea about what this thing actually is. We tend to think of satellites as just big DSLRs floating in space, snapping photos.
Yeah, that is the most common misconception by far.
Oh,
If you just put a normal camera in space, optical sensor, you are severely limited.
how so?
Well, you're blind at night, for one.
Yeah.
And you are blind when it's cloudy.
And
If you're trying to monitor a rainforest or, say, a hurricane, clouds are obviously a massive problem.
so Sentinel-1 doesn't use light.
No, it doesn't. It uses C-band synthetic aperture radar, or SAR.
So it's like the bat of satellites.
That is actually a perfect analogy. It is an active sensor. It pings the Earth with microwave pulses and listens for the echo. It honestly doesn't care if it's midnight in the middle of the Atlantic or if there's a massive monsoon covering India. It sees the physical texture of the surface. It just sees right through the weather.
And the scale of this operation is massive. We are not talking about just one satellite up there. This is a whole constellation drama.
It is a bit of a family saga, really. You had the original twins, Sentinel-1A, which launched in 2014, and Sentinel-1B, which launched in 2016.
The twin!
Right, and they orbit 180 degrees apart to give you that constant, reliable coverage. And for years, everything was going great. They were mapping sea ice, tracking oil spills, monitoring deforestation.
And then came the drama, Sentinel-1B. I was reading the ESA Mission End report in our sources, and it is heartbreaking in a very nerdy way. In December 2021, it just stopped giving data.
Yeah, it was a very specific, very frustrating failure. And the tragic part is it wasn't the radar itself. The multi-million euro radar was totally fine.
So what broke?
It was the power supply for the radar. Specifically, they noted a technical anomaly with the 28-volt regulated bus of the CSAR antenna power supply.
Wait, a 28-volt bus? That sounds like a fuse you would go buy at a local auto parts store.
Effectively, yes, it kind of is. It's a component responsible for regulating power to the electronics. And when that goes down, the radar simply cannot turn on.
So what do? You can't exactly send a mechanic up 700 kilometers to swap a fuse.
Exactly. So they spent months from December 2021 all the way until August 2022 just trying to fix it remotely.
Wow, 8 months?
Yeah. They tried resetting the power units. They even tried changing the orbital configuration to strategically warm up or cool down specific parts of the satellite, hoping that maybe thermal expansion might reconnect a loose physical contact. It was this incredibly tense, slow-motion rescue mission.
But no luck.
No luck at all. In August 2022, they finally had to call it and declare the mission over. Sentinel-1B was dead, an incredible mission ended by a power regulator.
But the program is resilient, which is the good news. The sources mentioned Sentinel-1C launched recently, December 5th, 2024, on a Mega-C rocket. And Sentinel-1D followed in November 2025 on Ariane 6. So they basically replaced the fallen soldier.
They absolutely had to. Continuity is the key here. If you are tracking climate change, like the subtle melting of ice shelves over decades, you cannot have a 3-year gap in your data. You need a continuous, unbroken record. And speaking of precision, did you happen to catch the detail in the source about the orbital tube?
Yes, I did. That really stood out to me. The source said that they fly in an orbital tube with a radius of just 50 meters.
Just think about the physics of that for a second.
It's insane.
These things are moving at roughly 7.5 kilometers per second. They are nearly 700 kilometers above your head. And they actively manage their trajectory to stay within a virtual tube in space that is barely wider than an Olympic swimming pool.
Why do they need to be that incredibly precise, though? Is it just ESA showing off their math skills?
Not at all. It's a strict requirement for something called interferometry.
Okay, unpack that term for us.
Sure. If you want to detect ground movement, say a volcano literally breathing and swelling before an eruption, or a building slowly sinking into the mud in a coastal city, you need the satellite to be in the exact same spot in the sky that it was 12 days ago when it took the first picture.
Because you're comparing the two images.
Exactly. You need the angle of the radar bounce to be identical. If the satellite drifts even 100 meters to the left on its second pass, the math falls apart. The comparison becomes useless.
So it's kind of like trying to spot a dime on the sidewalk from a moving airplane and then coming back 12 days later and spotting that exact same dime from the exact same window angle.
That is exactly what it's like. And because they can hold that 50-meter tube, they can measure ground deformation down to the millimeter.
That is wild. And the applications from the sources are just incredible. They list everything from tracking the A68 iceberg, which, by the way, was the size of a small country, to monitoring illegal oil spills in the ocean.
And rapid disaster response. When Sentinel-1C launched, we got radar images of Svalbard and Brussels within days. But the real value shines when there is a flood.
Because of the weather, right?
Right. Optical satellites look down during a flood and just see the tops of rain clouds, because floods usually happen when it is actively raining. But Sentinel-1 sees the water line right through the storm. It tells the first responders on the ground, hey, the bridge is out over here, or this specific highway is completely submerged.
So that is the watcher from above. Passive, scientific, global. It sees everything on Earth, but it touches nothing. Now, let's zoom all the way down. From a billion-euro space agency to a university lab.
Ah, the Neo-Sentinel rover.
Yes. This comes from a paper titled Implementation of Neo-Sentinel Rover. It is a student project, but honestly, it's pretty staggering what they packed onto a little Raspberry Pi 4.
It really represents the democratization of surveillance tech. I mean, 20 years ago, if you wanted a mobile robot that could navigate a room and identify specific targets visually, you needed a massive DARPA grant. Now, you need a cheap microcontroller, some open-source Python scripts, and maybe about $200 worth of parts.
Let's look at the basic senses this little rover has. It's got an ultrasonic sensor for avoiding obstacles, a fire sensor, a sound sensor, and a metal detector. It's basically a rolling alarm system.
It's designed to be a ground-level sentry. The ESA satellite sees the map. This rover sees the room.
But it isn't just driving around blindly bumping into baseboards. The source highlights some serious AI integration. They are using CNN convolutional neural networks for live face recognition.
And YOLO.
You only look once.
Right. It's a highly efficient, real-time object detection algorithm. And this is exactly where the cute student project vibe takes a very sharp turn into something much more serious. I was looking at the results section in the paper, specifically what they were testing the vision system on. They weren't just detecting cats or chairs in a living room.
It was a pistol.
It was a pistol. The system captured an image, drew a crisp green bounding box around a handgun, and labeled it pistol .94, which implies a 94% confidence interval that it is looking at a deadly weapon.
See, that is exactly where I paused while reading. We go from cool science fair project to armed security bot really, really fast. And the way it talks to the human operator is interesting, too. It's not sending encrypted data packets to a complex ground station in Germany like the ESA satellite. It's literally using a telegram bot.
It's incredibly personal. It's basically texting you. I was looking at the screenshot of the chat log provided in the paper. It sends casual messages like fan on or heart rate 79, and then right next to it, baby's crying.
That specific sequence is so jarring to read. Gun detected, baby crying, fan on.
It perfectly shows the versatility, but also the inherent weirdness of modern DIY surveillance.